Hello, everyone. You don't need to clap yet. Thank you so much for coming tonight for the Champaign County Museum History Talk. My name is Will Best. I am the museum manager of the Champaign County History Museum. We host this series every single month where we give local community members and organizations the opportunity to talk about local history topics and the evolution of our local community. Before I begin, I do want to, at the very least, go ahead and thank the Urbana Seminary for being able to speak with us today, and I'd like to, once again, thank all of you for coming out tonight. For now, I'm going to first introduce our speaker. After serving in full-time pastoral ministry in Indiana, New Jersey, Dr. Cuffey came to Champaign-Urbana in 1994 at the founding of the Christian Studies Center, the predecessor to the Urbana Theological Seminary. He taught courses in biblical studies and practical ministry for the center from 1994 until 2003. And at the inauguration of the Urbana Theological Seminary, he was named president of the seminary and professor of biblical studies. He teaches courses today in Old and New Testament, as well as Hebrew and Greek language. Special research and publication interests include the literary coherence of Old Testament prophetic and wisdom books and the value of context in understanding biblical books. As president of the seminary, he provides leadership for the school, overseeing its people and programs and the fulfillment of its mission. Dr. Cuffey's book, The Literary Coherence of the Book of Micah, was published by Bloomsbury Press in 2015. And now, I'll welcome our speaker, Dr. Ken Cuffey, to the stage.
Thank you so much, Will, and thank you all for being here. It's good to see you this evening, and I'm delighted and honored to be able to share about a more recent part of local history that is probably not very well known, but it is significant, I think, in the impact and the difference that it's making. So I'm going to address the story of Urbana Seminary at 20 years, because as you'll see, we're 20 years old. So Urbana Theological Seminary at 20. And you'll notice our logo is the intertwined double flame, which connotes both a passion for learning and shedding light, we hope. So what exactly is Urbana Theological Seminary? And I'm guessing that in this group we've got people who have a very deep knowledge of us and a people who may be finding out for the very first time that we even exist. So there's quite a range. So what actually are we? Well, if you look in our materials, we are an interdenominational graduate school of theology. We are, if we break it down, we're graduate. That refers to the level at which we teach, master's degrees, level and expectations. We're a school. We offer credit, take classes, you have assignments, you gain resources, you want to learn to think critically and independently. But it's focused on a particular area, on theology. We research the big questions of life. We focus on what prepares people and helps them understand Christian faith in particular, and use that in productive service to those around them, to prepare them to serve others, to minister, to gain skills for serving other people, and having depth in their thinking about faith and what they actually believe. We are also interdenominational. We welcome anyone who would like to study and wants to grapple with the big who study with us. We value our students. I went to a different Big Ten school, but I did go in college to a large university with tens of thousands of students. And one of the issues in that kind of a setting is that sometimes you can't find the profs anywhere to ask them a question because they have 400 people in the class and they're hiding and they really aren't hoping to see you. So We are a small enough school that we can really be available, build relationships, mentor, and connect with students, and that's a high value. Our diversity mirrors God's kingdom, and you'll see some of this as we go on. We bring together people from all kinds of backgrounds, church-wise, but we also bring together people ethnically, racially, across all kinds of barriers. And when you read the descriptions of what Jesus is doing in the Gospels as he announces the arrival of the kingdom of God, and you see what was happening all through the scriptures, you understand that the kingdom that God is building is one that welcomes, brings together people from everywhere and every background. So we feel that's mirroring what we're serious about in our faith. Scripture is the bottom line. We have a canon, we take it seriously, and we'd like people to have it as a resource to understand. And we give people tools for the future. This is a graduate level degree. The degrees are graduate level, and that's important. We're teaching you not just here's a bunch of answers, but how to use resources, think, uncover, dig deep, come up with answers yourself, because we know that even if a person gets a thorough training from us, they will face, whether they are a pastor, a missionary, or a layperson in a church, they will face issues in the decades to come that nobody foresaw at the time they got their degree. They need to know how to think on their own 2 feet and be able to bring together resources like Scripture and a sense of what following Jesus actually means, and be able to draw on that education to come up with new answers. If you're interested in core beliefs, we have a very short set of beliefs in our statement, which is just designed so that people know where we're coming from. Basically, all the faculty teach from a perspective that is historic Christianity of 2,000 years. We are not denominational, and that's important to us. So, the story. Here you get now the history part. The history and then sort of what we have become. Our predecessor. I came here from North Jersey in 1994 at the invitation of a board, of a group of people in town who came from a variety of churches and campus ministries in Champaign-Urbana, who had a real vision and heart to bring theological education to Champaign-Urbana. They felt there's something that was missing here. We have a wonderful public university with the University of Illinois, but training for ministry or being able to explore questions and dig deeper in areas of faith was something we felt would add to and fit well in this environment. I came at that time, and we were an extension of another school, Trinity University, north of Chicago, from 1994 to 2003. And that was when we started offering classes. I would teach maybe 2 or 3 classes a time, a semester, and we'd bring in people from their main campus to teach other courses, and we developed a growing body of adjuncts locally who could teach. However, we didn't stay there. In 2001, sensing that the location we were in was strategic, that this is a marvelous community for academic endeavor and depth, finding out about all kinds of areas, so why not explicitly and in depth from a framework that is a Christian faith perspective, digging into the bigger questions of life. The board, at one of its meetings, which ironically, this is a funny detail, the board was scheduled to meet met on September 11th, 2001. And this was where we made the decision to begin the process to seek to become a standalone school. So the actual memories I have of that morning are this big discussion about our future, coupled with people getting reports all along about the North Tower just fell. A plane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania, and so on. So It was a very surreal morning, but it was an important morning for us as a school for reasons that are very local. In 2001 also, a local couple gave a very generous gift that enabled us to start to plan, and we hired a full-time administrative person and 2 more faculty. Dr. Adrian Lampkin, who was in church history, and Larry Larson, who was working on a doctorate at the time, to do practical ministry. So we actually had a small core that was formed at that point. And I'm not going to go into detail on different people who've worked for us at different times. I'm just going to show you the people who are there now, because that's maybe the most pertinent at this point. 2002, we chose the name Urbana Theological Seminary because we knew that Urbana is known as the location for the University of Illinois, so it should be a recognizable location to have as part of the name for the school, which has been disproven over the years, much to my chagrin. My best moment was talking to a woman on the phone who was asking for my email from work, and I was giving it to her, and I spelled out Urbana Seminary, and she said, "So it's you are bananas." No, Urbana's a place, it's a city. No. So that wasn't always as easy as we thought. 2003, we concluded the extension arrangement and became Urbana Theological Seminary Incorporated. At first, we were a DBA as the Christian Studies Center, the old name, doing business as Urbana Theological Seminary. And then in 2004, we just went ahead and changed the name. Since then, we have been located at 314 East Daniel, at the corner of Daniel and 4th Streets in Champaign. Our offices and central library are the 3rd floor of University Baptist Church. We're not Baptists, though we welcome every Baptist, but we rent their 3rd floor. And that's where we've been located for the last 20 years. We also went through an initial process with the Illinois Board of Higher Education in Springfield, and actually began that in 2002. April 5, 2005, we received what they call operating authority, which means you can set up your degree programs and offer graduate credit, and then on December 4th, 2007, received degree granting authority from the Board of Higher Ed, which means you can give people the degrees once they have gone through. So we went through both of those approval processes. In 2006, we actually added our first additional faculty as the seminary. Todd Daly came. Todd is a specialist in theology and ethics. You'll see more about him in a little bit. Just in the history, I'm going to tell you who came when, and you'll see their pictures in a few moments. Here you have some of the initial students. This is 2005, our training in how to do graduate level research, which we operate on a Saturday at the beginning of the school year, just trying to bring people together so that we'll have students who have their undergraduate degree in English and a student who has their undergraduate degree in engineering. And the two will say, I never wrote a paper in college, or I wrote 20 papers a semester in college. So we want to level the playing field a little bit because people come from all kinds of backgrounds into this sort of study. The programs that we set up at that point with the approval of the Board of Higher Education include 2 master's degrees and a graduate level certificate. The Master of Divinity is designed as full-time a 3-year degree. We've had people get it in 3 years or 14. Taking a course at a time. It's 90 semester hours. That's your classic seminary preparation for pastoral ministry degree. It includes every area, all the disciplines, Greek and Hebrew. You have everything you could possibly need to address all the different situations you'd encounter leading a church. The Master of Arts in Religion is 48 hours. It's a much smaller degree, and it has about half required and half elective, so we have people who have used it in all sorts of ways because it's super flexible to accommodate an individual student. So we'll have people who are saying, I don't want to ever be a pastor, but I want to work with youth, or I want to work as a discipleship pastor or an administrative pastor. They'll get this. I want to work with cross-cultural reaching out to people. This can work and be designed per people's interests. Had a lot of lay people in churches who have actually pursued and gotten the Master of Arts in Religion. The graduate certificate is 27 semester hours, and it's an introduction to seminary study. It's kind of exploratory, and we've had people who've used it and gone overseas as missionaries. We've had people who've gotten this as just lay people. It's all of the above. So the past decade then, 2009, Joe Thomas came from a theological school in Pennsylvania, just north of Philadelphia, and joined our faculty in church history. 2012, we had Peter Spicala, who has a PhD in New Testament and a Doctor of Ministry in Spiritual Formation, join us as part of the core faculty. 2013, we partied because it was our 10th anniversary, and we had a series of public lectures, brought in people from outside, some name recognition people coming in. And then in 2014, we're able to add Melody Green, whose PhD is actually in English studies and does a lot of work with Christianity and culture and the crossover between how Christianity interacts with the culture around. 2015, we had a retreat as faculty, which we try to do periodically, and devoted it to designing our strategic plan, which is now known by me as the Strategic Plan 1.0, in which we address how do we look to the future with our curriculum and what we offer, the kind of training we offer, so that we stay relevant and also actually are a help to the church, but the broader community. And we created two new parts of what we do under the umbrella of the seminary with master's degrees. We created the Center for Church and Community, which is to resource Central Illinois churches and people in ministry. And we created the Christian Study Center, which we'll talk more about, which is to reach the campus. So part of what we felt as a faculty, and there was a real unanimity in our group as we met and thought about it, and we credited it to the prompting of the Lord, was that we needed to take hold of where we are. God's given us a particular location. How do we take hold of that more fully? One of the things is to reach out and boost the churches and strengthen them and people who serve them. And the other is to reach out to the campus. So community and campus both. And that was part of the vision. We'll come back to those in a moment. In 2018, we revised the Strategic Plan 2.0 as we examined what had happened in the last few years. 2019, we received an endowment. It is a small endowment, but it has helped give some real stability and viability financially, and is a key element in talking with the accreditation agencies. We also were able to have Elaine Shaley, who's our office manager, begin her work. 2020, 2021, everything blew up. We had the pandemic, and all of a sudden, all of us on faculty very quickly learned how to teach online and use Zoom, which was our choice. We went with Zoom and we developed a whole new set of how we teach, sort of guidelines for how we teach online and noticed the potential too, as all of a sudden I had in one class somebody in Seattle and somebody in California. Another person's father in India got sick and she had to leave 4 weeks before the end of the semester, and she signed on at like 4 a.m. in India to be with us at class. So that makes you more than just Central Illinois. You know, we've had people from all over Central Illinois. We've had, we've had the Bloomington Normal and the Kankakee Bourbonnais Bradley and Charleston, Mattoon, Decatur a little less, but from around the area, certainly, we've drawn. And this created a whole new idea for us as faculty about what our actual impact and scope could be. So we learned a whole bunch of new stuff. In 2021, though, we also were able to add to faculty Ann Alexander. The DIS does not mean she's dissing people. That's actually a doctorate of intercultural studies. It's a professional doctorate, but it's not very common, so you don't see those initials frequently. She teaches intercultural communication. Lindsay Myers, working with marketing and design. Seth Curlin as a librarian. 2022, we added Emily Wenneborg, who's sitting in the back row and to the side there, who is on faculty, and her main focus is taking what we designated the Christian Studies Center, which is now named the Pascal Studies Center, and using that and carrying that, running forward with that to reach the campus. 2023, we added to faculty Chi-Ying Wang, whose PhD is in New Testament studies, and Pierce Durst, who's sitting on the other side there. Okay, I guess our newer faculty are sitting on either side of the room here in the back. Pierce is also in Christianity and culture. As Melody has done significant work with literature, he has worked so much with film and what film portrays about faith and big questions and how we interact with it. We also welcomed Margie Larson, who's doing our accounting, our books, and Tom Krause, who's standing back by the door there, who's the director of engagement and making all kinds of connections with people in the community. So, that's our story. What do we look like? Well, let me give you some pictures here. And I'm going to give you a lot of pictures and go through them quickly because it just gives you a feel for some of the range of what we do and who we have. In the years that followed, we've trained many people to understand the Bible, reflect on God, learn from the history of church, and serve God well. We've had people enroll for degrees, take courses for credit and not get degrees, pursue CEUs or audit classes, deepening themselves in any number of ways. So our students come from quite a wide range of backgrounds and stations in life. We have an incredible diversity, whole range of churches in backgrounds and involvements, a range of identities, people confident in their faith and their sense of calling to serve God, people who are struggling and questioning, seeking direction in life, people who aren't even sure they're Christians. It's the whole range. And beyond the church even. In one class, I remember having a young Hindu woman, and in another class, interacting with the atheist student who had signed up for the class. So, as I said, we welcome anyone who wants to study and honestly go deep wrestling with the big questions. And of course, we've learned a lot about looking at people on screens. And so just one sample of classroom, wide range of ages too, not just backgrounds and ethnicities, but we have people in their 20s, just out of college. We have people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, people who retire all of a sudden start taking classes. Their 70s, 80s we've had. It's the whole range. I haven't had anybody over 100 yet. We're still working on that. The faculty, of course, and then the staff and the administration. So let me introduce you to who is here in town working on this kind of thing. we've got the core faculty. So these are the people who teach, who do the research, who work with the students. Ann Alexander, as I mentioned, works with intercultural communication. She is a specialist in how stories actually convey truth. And she has spent her life until recently in Taiwan, actually, working in a very different setting. Todd Daly is a specialist in theology, talking about God, basically, and ethics. And his particular interest is end-of-life issues and how we decide what we do when you have the elder person, the parent you're caring for who's failing. How do you make the decision? And how long do you extend life? And he has gone into significant depth on things like transhumanism, the extension of life, and what's good, what's bad, what's ethical, what's not in that area. Piers Durst, back there in the corner, of course, is a PhD also. His PhD was in English from Washington State University, and he deals with Christianity and culture with a special focus on film. By the way, Todd's PhD is from the University of Edinburgh, so just getting a sense for where we're all coming from. Melody Green, who is also Christianity and culture, her PhD is from Illinois State. She is an expert in children's literature, but she's also published extensively on the works of people like C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, the Inklings. Mike McQueen, who has just gone to emeritus status, has been with us all along. He is a specialist. He is a specialist in missions. His Doctor of Ministry comes from a joint program between Reformed Theological Seminary and Highlands Theological College in Scotland. So he is Scotch. He will wear a kilt to graduation at times. Peter Spicala, who is both New Testament, PhD from Wheaton College in PhD program, and Doctor of Ministry in Spiritual Formation, blends the interest in text of the canon with how it impacts people in their personal internal development, how they grow. Joe Thomas, church history, his doctorate was from Trinity up in Deerfield, Illinois. He focused in his PhD on the relationship, sort of the unique phenomenon of the very early Pentecostal movements in the United States, that at a time when churches were segregated racially, their assumption is, no, Jesus wouldn't have done that, and they were completely integrated. This is around 1900, and it's something most people don't know anything about, but he did his dissertation work on that. He's also focused on people like Dietrich Bonhoeffer from Nazi Germany and his stand, which cost him his life, and using that as a pattern for Christian following Jesus and discipleship. Dr. Emily Weineborg, her PhD is from a school just down the street from here called the University of Illinois in education and philosophy of education, and she is working especially with the Pascal Study Center. Chi-Ying Wang is PhD in New Testament, so she can teach biblical classes and Greek language. And so Peter and Chi-Ying and I cover the Bible area. Staff and administration, Elaine Shaley covers The Office. She's a graphic designer as well and produces material. Seth, appropriately in front of books, is the librarian and has done a wonderful job with our library and creating an annex to the library now at Cornerstone Fellowship in Urbana. So we actually have 2 locations and can bring out more of the volumes that we've had to have in storage and remotely accessible. We have about 17,000 volumes now. Tom Krosnick is Director of Engagement, and he and Pierce both are alums of Urbana Seminary, both with Master of Arts in Religion, and Tom was serving in churches in Michigan and Indiana, and then has come into our circle as well and is making wonderful connections and contacts with people around. Lindsay Myers is our Director of Marketing and designs a lot of things herself. Facebook posts, Instagram posts, social media, that kind of thing, all coming from her. We've had a good relationship with the University of Illinois. Not an official one, though we have at times been able to teach. We had an arrangement with several colleges by which we taught some undergrad courses that transferred into the U of I, but we have to do that with someone else because we do not offer undergrad degrees. We have, on an individual basis, a number of us have good relationships with people in different departments. Religious studies, history, education. There's a number of ways we have crossed the street, crossed Wright Street in building relationships. Three of us were involved with the stewardship project from 2008 to 2010, where Faith in Place brought together seminary faculty and U of I faculty in meteorology, atmospheric sciences, landscape design to address how do you take care of this earth responsibly and try to make those resources available to churches. We encourage our faculty to publish. I'm just going to give you a visual. I'm not going to bore you with every last thing. There's individual books that have been written. You notice Todd's there, Chasing Methuselah, which is, of course, about life extension. Joe Thomas's Interracial Churches and Early Holiness Pentecostalism. My book on the literary coherence of Micah. Or books that are edited. Melody Green was a co-editor on this volume, J.R.R. Tolkien and the Arts. And then contributions, chapters in books, and of course articles in journals. But these are 4 books that Todd has a contribution to each of them. Here's 4 books that Melody also has a contribution to. You can see, of course, Todd's interest and her interest, definitely. Unique and focused. Brett Smith is one of our lecturers. He's not on the core faculty, but is a lecturer. His book on Labor's Millennium, about the founding of the University of Illinois. I have a chapter in Reading and Hearing the Book of the 12. Todd's article, Chasing Methuselah, before he published the book, was the lead article in a Christianity Today issue in January 2011. It's a very striking cover, but that's Todd's Christianity Today. So we've got relation with the U of I, faculty publications, alumni. You would expect our alumni would go into ministry, pastors or cross-cultural and missional. And indeed, we've had those. Pastors in local area churches, Monticello, one in northern Illinois now, couple in town here. But cross-cultural and missional, we've been represented in India, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, China in Beijing, and France and Turkey. So even though we have a small base of alumni, they're going places and they are touching and impacting people. But what's most unusual about us, not being a denominational school, there's a very broad range of vocations and disciplines that our alums have been part of. So we graduate people. Here, we usually have it in the chapel, the Episcopal chapel, right north of the U of I library, which has a very beautiful building, and inside it's sort of the closest to a tiny cathedral that we can get in town here. But as we graduate students, we have turned out not just your typical people in vocational work in the church, but we've also got among our alums an engineer who designs and builds houses in California, a high school chemistry teacher, a former faculty member of the U of I in engineering who now runs his own consulting business on innovation in research, a high-level marketing exec at Disney Corp, a retired MTD bus driver, an alum who's fundraising for part of the U of I's new medical college, and a biological researcher at Harvard. So our alums go all over the place, and they take what they've been trained in, and they've learned to think about, what does it mean that I'm a Christian who follows Jesus and I do biological research, or I teach high school chemistry, or I'm designing houses. And they are able to make integration. And so this is just a sampling of people as they've graduated, the families, and these are actually not graduates, but they're putting on their dad's and somebody else's hats. All right, our most recent, last year's group of grads as well. And just recently we had the delight of having one of our graduates from about 10 years ago come back and deliver the address to our graduates. So our alumni, we need to mention our friends though. There's a broad circle of individuals who work with us, and they care about what we do. Equipping people, reaching, touching people who are going to impact others. And they are supportive, whether they pray for the school, give to it financially, read our material, sign up for classes, even though they're not getting a degree, they're involved. We have a great circle of friends and an honor roll of churches that have been key in this process. We have a variety of opportunities, which I've really alluded to already. We offer degrees, of course. We offer credit. You would be surprised how many people take courses for credit who actually aren't interested in getting a degree, but they just want to go deeper and dig. Audits, continuing ed, and a library that's available to the community. We mentioned the Center for Church and Community. That is our reaching out to the churches in Central Illinois, people in ministry in Central Illinois. And we created something called Provisions for Pastors, where we sponsor a preaching forum, a spiritual life forum, a weekly hermeneutical huddle where pastors gather to talk about their sermons and how they handle passages, and the library available to anyone locally. The Berean Institute, also under this, takes what we do at the graduate level and puts it on a lay level for people in the churches broadly. So we're available to help churches from pulpit supply, teach a Sunday school class, whatever it may be. So preaching forum from past years. For some reason it stalled on that one. I'm not sure why. There we go. Spiritual Life Forum, always making sure there's coffee ready because that's essential for people. There we go. People signing up, people coming to the different forums that we've had. Hard at work. The computer is actually freezing up now. There's Norm Hubbard once again doing his teaching at the Spiritual Life Forum several years ago. Someone looking very surprised at one of their counterparts there at the table. I see Margaret Schrock in the background there. We had a Spiritual Life Forum on the Me Too movement and its impact on people's faith and churches back several years ago. This last year, we had Mel Lorenz from Wisconsin come and treat on seeking wholeness in a broken world. So special events that draw these people together. Pascal Study Center, Emily's area. And I realized I have fewer pictures of this. My apologies. Before Emily was here, we did run the Veritas Forum several times as a big all-campus sort of event to draw people together around questions of faith. Now the Pascal Study Center, of course, doing things like reading groups where they take a book, read it together, talk about it together, faith and film movie nights as well. And you can talk to Emily afterwards and find out more about what they've got going. There's a lot of new things coming. We've also tried to touch the community broadly through what we call training through travel. We have gone to Israel twice so far with this, Turkey, Greece, in the footsteps of Paul, Reformation tour in 2019, and they're going again next week. An Inklings tour, which the brochures are circulating among you, which is this September. Biblical Turkey in 2025, and Italy of Bible in the Early Church with Joe Thomas and me together leading it, projected for 2026. This is when we were in Israel the first time and went to the Sea of Galilee. By the way, if you come with us on these trips, I don't know that we can guarantee the sunsets quite as stunning as that one was over the Sea of Galilee. That was amazing. We also do more local travel. June 8th, we're doing the Old Oriental Institute for the Study of Ancient Culture trip called Ancient Israel in Chicago. You're welcome to join us. I encourage you to look into it. There's a significant amount of Near Eastern artifacts on the University of Chicago campus in the museum that correlate with the Old Testament especially. There is one of our participants, as for a student of an earlier era, enjoying one of the Lamassu bulls from Assyria, and there's another one of our trip participants comparing herself to the Queen of Egypt. So we go to the Institute and seek in depth to find out what we can about what these show about the real life setting of the Old Testament. Class field trips, number of those. Often Dr. Green will take her classes to the Marion Wade Center at Wheaton, which is devoted to C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, and the other Inklings. There's Tolkien in a bust, and the purported closet of Narnia, if you've read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's from C.S. Lewis's house and is supposed to be what inspired the idea. There is C.S. Lewis and the group, and apparently Doug is putting Nancy into the closet. The others are protecting her. Up at the Wade Center, north of Chicago, has a wonderful library where they'll do research when they go up there. In addition, we host seminars. A Tolkien conference multiple times. We were the site for the Mythopoeic Society, which is a national scholarly society, and their meeting was here in 2017. The Audio Feed Music Festival, we will have a tent there and usually do a set of lectures. Here's Ann Alexander working with how story works to communicate with a group. People come into the tent in the heat of July and soak up what we've got for them. They're drinking tea, too. Taste of Seminary, Todd Daly's done a wonderful job putting together one-off talks. They're like an hour and a half on a Tuesday night at some point in the usually October and February, just to bring topics like this to people broadly. That first set was from Peter Spicala's talk. This is Judy Webb, who is a lecturer in worship for us, and her presentation at the Taste of Seminary. Todd Daly doing one of his life extension talks. Special events. We helped one of our students and board member, Doug Peterson, who's just published a historical novel, Thrones in the Desert, just a few weeks ago, to launch him on that. When the Barbie movie came out, we sponsored a public discussion night to go see the movie and talk about what it implies and about the theology. Sponsor book sales, used books that we've already got another copy in the library. There you are, Margaret. And people come together. This is when we had Chi-Ying Wang candidate for the position in New Testament, and we came together, heard her public lecture. So we have quite a bit going on. There's allied ministries that are connected with us. I can tell you more about that afterwards if you're interested. Our future, mission and vision stays the same, but there's been some additions. One is the new library annex over at Cornerstone Fellowship in Urbana, which gives you a really nice area to study, and you can access all sorts of resources, and the blended tech classroom, which lets us do online and in person together in the same room. That's at Emmanuel Memorial Episcopal Church, downtown Champaign. Strategic Plan 3.0 and 4.0 have been the result of faculty retreats and discussions. We keep coming back to it. Basically, we made a strategic plan and discovered that after the pandemic, everything was completely blown out of the water, and we had to redo it in how we think about what we're doing and how we reach people. So what's new? I end with this, basically. We, as a result of revision and looking at the culture, looking at where we are and where the culture around us is, how education has changed, how church culture has changed, expectations people have. We have just started this last year something we call the Story Experience, which is a set of classes designed to tell the story and give people resources. There's the Story of God's Word, which is a 2-credit class that puts the whole story of Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, and New Testament all together in one overarching trajectory. There's the Story of God, which is a summary. So usually we take 6 hours of credit to introduce each of these disciplines. These are 2-hour classes that introduce Story of God is who is God? How do we think about it? The Story of God's People is church history. That's going to be this next fall, and it goes beyond that. The MA in Christianity and Culture is a brand new degree. We have designed it to be 36 hours, so it's more on a par with the Master of Arts you get at the U of I, and it has great flexibility, and it is right now our application to be approved by the Board of Higher Education is complete and submitted. Certificate in Spiritual Formation is being designed by Dr. Spicala as well. So, all that to say, check back. This keeps evolving and developing. There's more coming, clearly. Our website is the rather clunky www.urbanatheologicalseminary.org. So check it out. You'll see announcements of classes, announcements of special programs and events. But you can talk to Pierce or Tom, too, about getting on the mailing list if you'd like to get our Hearth newsletters, or be on the email list to receive notes of what's happening, or follow us on Facebook and Instagram. All of that, Urbana Theological Seminary at 20, the story of the first 20 years. So, I think we're at time here, but if there's any Q&A, I'll entertain a few questions, and we'll also be willing to stay afterwards if you'd like to ask anything more. Any questions? Any heckling?
If any of your students take a class at the university, do their credits transfer over to you?
There is very little correlation between classes at the university and us. If they were to do something like Old Testament survey, New Testament survey, that would be one thing. But most of what we offer is actually different from the curriculum at the U of I. So, in that sense, then there's some courses that could correlate with church history too, especially. So, yeah. But yeah, we're more than open to that and have brought in transfer credit from other institutions easily enough. So, anything else?
Who teaches the Greek?
I can teach it, Peter can teach it, and Chi Ying can teach it. So we've all taught it at different times. Chi Ying is going to teach it next year. She's the most recent addition. Anything else? If no, I'll turn it back to you.
If there are no further questions, once again, I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and let's give the Urbana Theological Seminary a Otherwise, thank you for coming. We host these every month. The next History Talk is going to be on June 20th, held at the Urbana Free Library at 7 p.m. We are going to be exploring the history of another local Urbana connection, the history of Myra Station, and the history of the Silver family, whom the station was named after. That being said, if you want to know a little bit more about it, we actually have 2 blog posts up on our website that explore its history in a little bit more depth. That being said, if you want to see more pictures and hear me talk for another hour or so, you can come to the talk. Otherwise, thank you all for coming tonight.